visiting those guys was the highlight of my summer.
Cool. Yeah,
Anything?
I feel like, yeah, I'll just try to like linger a couple seconds on like almost every slide. So if you think of something else, feel free to just go for it.
Okay.
Just go for you.
Thank you so much.
I've never been able to eat cows for that reason.
Yeah.
They're just the sweetest, cutest.
They're so nice.
My mom used to read me Charlotte's Web,
Mm-hmm.
and she, if there was like pork or something at a restaurant, she'd be like, "That's Wilbur."
Oh my. Was she a vegetarian?
Well, she actually eats. She's pescatarian. She eats fish,
Mm-hmm.
but she's like,
My mom's pescatarian.
yeah. My mom's like the fish and dog.
Yeah.
That's like her thing.
Yeah. We're that kid. Amazing. I mean,
I know, but then I used to watch My Octopus Teacher.
oh my gosh, I love
watching that.
octopuses.
Yeah.
I've read a couple books on octopuses because I just
Whoa.
find they're so interesting.
Amazing.
Yeah, they're basically aliens.
Yeah, they literally are, and they're like so
So
smart.
smart. They recognize the human face with the cell phone. Did you not hear the octopus in the Seattle Aquarium?
No.
So at night, it crawl out of its cage and it crawl across the carpet and go into the tide pools and eat the animals in the tide pools and then crawl back.
That's
And
so
it's somewhat
scary.
wild to figure out what was going on. Yeah, it's very scary.
Wow.
Yeah.
They go across the floor. Oh.
Yeah, I love it.
I saw an octopus one time. They did like a demonstration at the aquarium, and it like opened up this potato head.
Oh.
Yeah, it took all the little pieces out. That movie made me really so good because I do like calamari and octopus things, and then I had to stop.
Yeah.
Because I can't anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. That's what we thought, and I'm just gonna try to.
Me.
Awesome. Okay.
I'm so bummed that Tanya couldn't be here. Her story was so good.
I was so excited, to hear like her expand on that story.
So maybe at some point we gotta talk about just like everything, right? Yeah. Totally get it. I appreciate it. Call back, buddy. If we're all set. Thank you for the offer, but we're okay. Love you, man. Okay. Bye, buddy.
Bye.
Sorry, it's just slow. I'm about to say I'm about to end it. Yeah. Yeah. Here, do we want to try lights? Try lights. Just using curved speech lights. Show. Yeah, do 10 and do 20. I'm gonna turn on the
Right.
And we're going to go dark and house lights, everybody.
Thank you.
I think that's a good frame. I'm just waiting for Wix to load. That's all. It's just slow. Oh, I've got it. I'm doing it right now for you.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Can I send it to the email? It's not on our website. Oh, it just says you said it's published in line. So there was a delay. Then I just send you the link. And it's going to send the link.
I would say
Yeah. On the true story page.
Man, that's so cool.
I'm wondering what's making that texture. Is that just the texture of the wall on the right hand side?
Sure. Sorry, I was.
What?
Like the gray area?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's not on the slide at all.
I can tell.
It must be something in the projector then. Look, it does look like paper, but this isn't not paper.
Hmm.
Because I feel like it didn't look like that yesterday. Maybe it's just.
Yeah. Do you do this at other theaters?
No, this is the first time I've run projections. Well, I've definitely run projections like when I was in school.
Mm-hmm.
But I write for the EST like new for the young playwrights class. So
Oh, cool.
they needed the head of that Troy. I don't know if you know Troy.
I don't know anybody.
Yeah, the head of that usually runs projections for this, but he couldn't this week, so he emailed everyone.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm so glad I did it because like I really like prose writing and little stories like this,
Mhm.
like as much as playwriting, and I've been looking for like a place where that happens, and it's great that that also happens at ESU. That's scary.
Yeah, that's a really cool program slash place. It's just, I didn't know anything about it. I only know about it because Lizzie lives across the street from me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's really cool.
it's like the moth. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
But it's like even cooler this year.
Yeah.
I want to submit something.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it's so
you
great that the forum is being like you and Gordon are shaking up the forum right now.
Yeah.
Right here. Like I just said my friend and he ran projections a couple months ago for
Mhm.
one of the other shows, and I was like, yeah, there's like cartoons. Oh my god. Mind blown. Let's see how this goes. Okay. Is it back?
What's the next theme?
Chicken and the egg.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Rabbit's here. Hold on, Rabbit.
How's it going?
And you have any additional comments?
It's going great.
So when you're ready, let's, let people in.
Yeah, let me know when
We
you're
just do that title bar, the first slide.
Absolutely. Yeah. Censoring everything a little bit. I don't know why your texture is so low. I feel like it was better yesterday.
I know, that line.
Yes.
Here. Huh. You know what? It wasn't. It could be much more.
Oh, really?
Or it's something leaked.
Oh, yeah, I see. There's water on
Yeah, something leaked, but it wasn't there yesterday. I know, you would have noticed that.
the. I have it. Is
Okay.
Rabbit gonna watch the?
No, because she will talk. People start talking. She'll be in the car with a full of peanut butter. But it's only gonna be about an hour. It's not gonna be long.
Yeah.
And I can check on her. I can slip out with something and check on her. Oh, it looks great. Are you good? Do you need some water or something? Yeah, you are. So we're gonna bring the wine out there. Is it 7?
It's yeah.
Oh, okay. You go.
Is there a like a little flashlight in the booth or anything like that? Just because I want to make sure. I can put my phone on those flashlight. Yeah, that would be perfect. The shared banana. Wow.
Just a little clip here.
That is.
Will that work?
That is perfect.
Is that enough light for you?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay, good.
Hi, Gordon.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Those illustrations you sent are so beautiful.
Oh, the ones that are colored,
Yeah,
those are by she's
yeah,
here.
they're I would love to meet her.
Yeah.
It's really incredible.
Is that clock here? Motorcycle.
Yes, Hutch is here. He's at Moment or the front.
Cool.
Yeah, actually, you're up right now. Yeah, just take a second to meditate. Is your piano coming?
I have no. That was so weird. Well, what? Sure, how to answer that question. No, like father and mother family are all in San Francisco.
Oh, okay. No, I mean like your husband and your kids.
My husband is in Louisville.
Okay.
I have one child in Louisville. But tonight is at a birthday party. And my son, he's the special needs one, I think I mentioned.
Yeah.
And he said he didn't want to come in. I don't know.
Like, all right.
So yeah, no, my friend Patty's here.
Nice. Yeah, I kind of dread my family hearing my on that side.
I hate to make sure you're okay. Didn't like the phrase. But it's just shocking life. That was something else. I always said that. It was much more in just the sense that I like necessarily know that. First, I had a problem with that.
Perfect.
You're last.
Sorry, yeah,
I'm
because.
gonna have to follow.
Yes, you are.
I was listening to that
True, true story.
I like this.
Hi.
That's been fun, because Hutch and I are both more animated in a way.
First of all, I don't think he curse normally at all. I don't know why I'm talking about cursing.
And the way that you really got on this thing, I can't wait for
I think one in my story that I never.
That's true.
Oh, people are coming in.
Yes. I have.
Yeah. Hey, Kalana.
Hi, how are you?
Doing good. How are you doing?
You still here?
Most of the snap. There she is.
Yeah. Oh,
They're called real.
that's so fun.
I know. Are you holding up the wall?
And now everyone I know.
Oh, yeah.
Like way longer. You know, is it
Is your chicken still alive? You could go visit her. Would she remember? The birds remember? There you are.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Hi. Hi, it's me, Lizzie Ross. Welcome to EST Los Angeles and True Story, April 2023. And the theme tonight is the The chicken or the egg? So I want you to know that Tanya White was supposed to join us. And unfortunately, she's had a family emergency, so she won't be here tonight. The story, she shared it with us yesterday, but it's really beautiful. So hopefully she'll be back soon to share that with you, with everyone watching from home. It's really beautiful story. But we're wishing her and her family well tonight. And we just have to go on without her. But Tanya, take care of your family and we look forward to seeing you soon. We're live streaming. I'm not just talking. We live stream and we record now. We've been doing this since the year 2015. Monthly, we are the first Sunday, and we are generously being supported by UST Los Angeles. They are our sponsors, and this is our creative home. So for everyone here tonight, thank you for donating. Thank you for being here. For those watching, there's a link on the website. Please support us. We really could use the funding to keep going and to help this program grow. And speaking of growing, we're doing lots of multimedia stuff tonight. Two things. You know, when we created this, and Karen Rizzo and I came up with the idea of True Story. When we were about to say True Story, it's both the truth and we embellish upon it. And once you tell that story, it's no longer yours. It becomes everyone's. Everyone who hears it carries that story into their own world. And I'm always so thankful and honored that my writers trust me with their personal truth or their personal stories. Usually fun, sometimes scary, but I think it's always great to tell the truth. I really do. It's also the best thing you can do. It just is. So, but I had another thought and it just went, because that felt profound. It was really good, right? Live streaming, doing this, doing that. Oh, I feel it's important to recognize that not all storytelling is just on the page and written word. Creative artists tell stories. And having come from a theater background and always being an actor, it never occurred to me that that's also another way that I tell stories until recently. Gordon has always shared his art with us. Tonight, Dana is going to share her art with us. And my focus moving forward is to allow every storyteller to be able to find a voice that they tell the story, that serves the story the best. So this is sort of the beginning steps of more media and the program in different directions. So I'm psyched. It is the second time Priscilla is joining us as storyteller. Priscilla Miranda helped this come into being. She has been our stage manager and my right-hand person for so many years here to deal with everything that I've produced. And now she's going to voice the writer. Dina, this is her first time doing
Yeah,
first time live storyteller. And then there's Hutch and Gordon, you know. So I'm just gonna get us started. Thank you all. Priscilla Miranda, you ready?
Yes.
Come join. When I grow up, I want to be a singer. Said no one ever. I certainly didn't, and now I'm thinking to myself, which came first? Or the thinking of becoming a stage manager. One day, when I was 18 or 19, I was talking to my dad about his job. He mentioned that his dream would be to work 4 days a week because 2 days off a week just didn't seem like enough. I agree with him now. Do you like your job? I asked him. No one likes their job, he replied. What do you mean? I practically yelled. Jobs are for paying bills, he shrugged. I immediately went into shock.
My dad is a copier technician, and that to me always seemed like more of a career that you chose to do rather than a job that you have just to pay the bills. I mean, he and my mom raised 3 kids and bought a house with that job. Surely he had to like it, I thought to myself. So I did what any other teenager would do. I made the decision to rebel against him and prove that you can love your job. Most teenagers rebel by getting a tattoo or a piercing, but the most trouble I ever got in was reading books past my bedtime. I wish I could say that my master plan happened overnight. It didn't. I wish I could say it happened the following year. Also no. At that point, I really didn't know what I wanted to do until I found theater. I discovered theater my senior year of high school, and it was love at first sight. I had to choose an elective that year, so I decided to take a drama class to get out of my comfort zone. And that led to auditioning and performing in a couple of plays. The people I met there were some of the biggest weirdos I had ever met in my life. I had found my people. No one encouraged me, provided me with more of a safe space, or made me feel more welcome than they did. And I'm still friends with most of them to this day. When it came time to decide which community college I would go to, I leaned toward Pasadena City College, for literally no other reason than the fact that my brother went there. I hated school, and the idea of registering overwhelmed me, so I think my logic was that at least I would have something to tell me why my classes went. When I brought these plans up to my theater teacher, he asked me what I was planning on studying. Theater, I replied, that's the key. He told me I needed to be at East LA College because at the time they had just revamped their entire department. Hearing this was a dream for an indecisive person, so it didn't take much to change my plans and enroll there instead. The ironic part was I never actually ended up participating in their theater program. Getting that degree required acting classes, and at that point, I had already decided that I wasn't narcissistic enough to be an actor. Sorry. I didn't want to do theater at school anymore. I didn't want to just dip my toes in the water. I wanted to jump in the pool. In between classes and homework, I reached out to every theater I could find in Egypt, asking if anyone would go. What did you have in mind, they would all ask. And the truth was, I had no idea. I just knew that I had to be in a theater, amongst my tribe of heroes. I didn't care if I was tearing tickets at the door or ushering patrons to their seats. I didn't even care if I was just showing people where the restroom was. I wanted to be inside where the magic happened. My first volunteer job was sweeping the patio of the Pasadena Playhouse. I sensed how bad they felt asking me to do that, but I assured them that I really didn't mind. They continued to look at me like I was crazy, and I'm sure they expected me to stop showing up. But I never did, because that patio is not going to sweep itself. One day, while volunteering, a woman who worked there told me that she was stage managing a show at Road Machine and asked if I was interested in being her ASM. I had no idea what Road Machine meant or what an ASM was, but I said yes without asking any questions because neither of those things mattered. Your girl had gotten herself a paid theater job. It wasn't until I got my first paycheck that I realized I probably should have asked a lot more questions. But the truth was, I still didn't care. It wasn't about the money. I can assure you, it really wasn't about the money. I was networking. I was meeting new people, some nicer than others, and I was learning a lot. But more importantly, I was getting a ton of work. It wasn't long before I dropped the A in ASM, and I was being asked to stage manage shows on my own. Keep in mind, I still didn't exactly know what I was doing, but I was willing to fake it till I could get it. This resulted in a case of imposter syndrome that I still get to this day, but we're working on it there. I was going to classes from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., rehearsing from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., sitting in traffic from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., and then doing homework until 8 p.m., from 8 p.m. until I fell asleep. I loved every single minute of it. But sometimes I felt like I wasn't getting out enough, or I'm in my 20s the way society tells you that you should. I brought it up to my brother one time, and his response was, "You're going to make something out of this career. You're not going to make anything out of work." I know he doesn't remember telling me that, but it was enough for me to stop overthinking it anytime I missed out on something fun because I had rehearsal. Don't get me wrong, keeping up with this type of lifestyle I created for myself wasn't easy. I lived in Rosemead at the time, so the number of miles I was driving to LA every day was adding up quickly. While working on shows as a freelance stage manager, I was doing every job I could find that didn't ask for things. I was supporting my art the way I wanted my art to support me, and I was having the time of my life doing it. My dating life wasn't exactly thriving, but it still isn't, so I know work is never easy. I hated it when guys asked me what the rehearsal was over, and then dealing with their impatience when I had to tell them that rehearsal was extending due to the director changing his mind about props and costumes and lights. I also hated the dumb look on the guy's face when I told him I worked weekends. Because as hard as it was, I always tried not to date anyone I worked with, which meant they had zero clue what a production schedule looked like. To this day, I'm still convinced that if you offered to send me $1 million to explain what I do for a living, they wouldn't stand a chance at me. After I graduated from East LA College in 2014, I remember walking around with a little bit of shame for not transferring to a four-year college the way everyone expected. I didn't see it as benefiting me, and at the time, I felt like my generation was forced to go to college whether you knew what you wanted to do or not. Once I was done with school and I freed up a decent chunk of my day, I decided to get my first big girl job at a clothing warehouse where I shipped swimsuits all over the world. That didn't last long. I ended up leaving for a summer internship at Dixon Place Theater in New York City. I eventually came back to LA, and in 2018, the stage management opportunity at Universal Studios Hollywood came up, and I applied, not thinking I was going to get it, but also thrilled when I did. It was a big adjustment from traditional theater, but I finally saw myself working somewhere else that wasn't inside of the theater. And then the pandemic happened. There were a lot of things that turned my world upside down in March of 2020, when nothing could have prepared me for the activity that was losing all work in the industry. I had been depressed before, but the emptiness I felt this time was different. I no longer had purpose, something to base myself worth on, or at least that's what it felt like. I immediately resented theater. Maybe my mom was right. Maybe I should have had a plan B. But I had never taken the time to learn any other skills. I looked at the few places that were allowed to stay open at that time. I knew I couldn't be a cashier based on the fact that I had failed math, sometimes multiple times in a year. I couldn't work in a restaurant. I could barely boil an egg back then, or now. The idea of feeling useless rocked me to my core, and it took me to a very dark place. Thankfully, I was able to keep my job at Universal, and going back to work for the first time in a year gave me first day of school dinner all over again. This past year, I started stage managing at the Disneyland Resort, so I'm now working both parts part-time. Sadly, the only thing that didn't survive post-pandemic was working at theaters. Not necessarily by choice, but because I just don't have as much time anymore. Stage management at theme parks is very much a corporate environment, and to keep myself from getting jaded like all my coworkers, I try to go out and see as much theater as possible. Sometimes I still think about changing careers, but I have no idea what I would do. I can't sit in an office all day, and you can forget about customer service. There's nothing that scares me more than walking through the theme park with my name tag on, running the risk of being asked questions like where the nearest restaurant is. It's funny, pointing out the nearest restaurant is all I ever wanted in a theater job, and here I am dreading it. I don't feel like you're giving everybody career options as a kid. At least I wasn't. They were mostly things like a doctor or a teacher, things I realized are really the only types of jobs we come across as kids. I wasn't given a chance to decide that I wanted to do stage management, which I'm grateful for because I can't even choose what flavor ice cream I want. I sometimes wonder if anything would be different had I taken a drama class earlier. I feel like it taught me so much more than just memorizing lines and playing improv games. I always said that if I ever had kids, I would put them in a drama class early on. Since that's obviously not happening, I fully plan on forcing it on my nieces and nephews. Despite everything so far, I've done more than I could have ever dreamed of, and it's done for work. I've driven a U-Haul full of set pieces in a Denver snowstorm. I've worked with celebrities, D-list celebrities, but they still count. And I've worked on shows and on boards. I haven't crossed everything off my bucket list, but I'm getting there. So if you ask me which came first, the chicken or the egg, I will say the chicken just barged in and made itself back home.
let's move it a little bit back over here. Right? Just a little. Good? Damon, right?
Oh, thanks.
Make sure you-
This is my comic. It's called Choices. I hate it when people ask me why I'm a vegetarian. Mostly because people who ask, they just want to argue why you no eat meat. You eat eggs? I do. But those are baby chickens. Well, I don't mind eating babies, I guess. Got 'em. Why? Why do so many educated adults say this to me? Eggs from the grocery store are not fertilized. They're not baby chickens. How freaky would it be? Oh, next slide. How freaky would it be if this was in your carton of eggs that you got at Albertsons for $10? And that's on special right now. Maybe it wouldn't be freaky to you. Maybe you'd be into it. No judgment here. I have no moral high ground. If I were a better person, I'd be a vegan. And I want to be a vegan. I've tried. I can't. I like cheese too much. I'm sorry. Now, when people ask, I say I choose not to eat meat because I don't like the taste. They usually don't argue with that, and it's a much simpler story. This is the longer answer. I promise it's not a guilt trip. I grew up in LA, but every summer, my family went to Maine to visit my grandparents. This is my paternal grandparents' cabin, where my grandpa Frank and my grandma Cece lived over the summer. And this is my aunt's cabin, where my Nana, that's my maternal grandmother, my mom, my dad, my brother, my twin sister, our dog Chili dog, and I stayed. I feel very lucky and grateful to have had those experiences now as an adult. But as an insecure, depressed kid, I was miserable. This is an amalgamation of childhood and me. I actually had horrible bangs my whole childhood, and I broke my arm over 2 summers. I was lonely and restless. I felt like I was missing out. I was jealous of my friends who went on exotic vacations, or better yet, got to live the dream and stay home. My family made me feel nervous and uncomfortable. What's 7 times 8? Come on, you should know this. Just add 7 to 7 times 7. I was most intimidated by my Nana. She was a very serious woman. And while you're looking at that picture of her, I want to tell you a family legend about how she was born. She was born during the Great Depression. And at that time, she was so small that they thought she was going to die. And I guess what they did back then was they took her and they put her in the oven. Like at their house, in the kitchen, they put her in the oven. It was basically an incubator and it saved her life. But how horrifying is that? It saved her life, and she survived and became my Nana, so it worked out. She liked to visit roadside cemeteries. Can I have a car, please? She always ate pizza so slowly with a fork and a knife, and she called dinner supper. Once I saw her smiling and reading while she was reading Harry Potter, or smiling and laughing while she was reading Harry Potter, and it blew my mind. I didn't become close with her until I was an adult. We talk on the phone all the time, mostly about politics, how we hated Trump, and books. Also, as an adult, I found out how cool she really was. She got a divorce when she was in her 40s. She went back to school and got a doctorate. She was able to buy her own home. It was a historic home in Albany, New York, it's like a row house across from Central Park in Albany. And her house was pristine, and she never owned a TV or a radio because she hated all mass media and all pop culture except Harry Potter. She was a lifelong Democrat, and she told me the only parade worth going to is Pride. So that's what she was. The last time I ever saw her was at a hospital in Albany. I hung doodles on the wall of her room. When it was time for me to head home, my Nana's friend offered to drive me to the airport. Ready? Yeah, thank you. I really envy the relationship you have with your grandma. It's great that you're so close. We weren't always close. When I was a kid, I was scared of her. I think she just didn't like kids. Oh yeah, that's how my grandmother was. And my mom. I bet a lot of women who had babies in past generations didn't like kids. I mean, that's true now, but probably and definitely there were more then. Yeah, there used to be no choice at all. If you were a woman who had sex with a man, you kind of had to have a kid. And I mean that in terms of societal expectations and literally birth control, abortion, there weren't always options. When I had my kids, I made sure they knew I chose to have them, that they felt wanted, that they felt loved. But I don't hold anything against my mom or my grandma. Oh yeah, I mean, it must have been horrible not to be able to make that choice. Things are far from perfect now, but at least they're getting better. Asterisk. This is before Roe v. Wade got overturned. So at that time, I guess she and I were feeling optimistic. No, I don't know. But anyway, back to me. Sometime in the mid-aughts, we used to get our groceries at a farm just over the New Hampshire border. One year, they set up a tent so visitors could pet the baby cows. The calves were so sweet and funny. They were like puppies. When you walk over, they'd run up to you and lick your hands, and it was kind of gross, but also so cute. They each had a unique personality. Visiting those guys was the highlight of my summer. The last time I saw them, I was shocked to see that they had tags on their ears that said Beal. But I couldn't break the association I made. The cats were basically puppies, and people were going to eat them? People are sick. Tell me. That wasn't actually his word. So basically, I found out that meat comes from dead animals, and then I couldn't eat them anymore. The reason I tell both stories together, my conversation with my Nana's friend and learning where feel comes from is because they're both about personal choice, which to me, and I'm sure to all of you, is sacred. And I fucking hate it when people try to argue with me about it.
So if you go to our website, let's do this. The live stream. Below you can both download the program, but you can also download Dana's comic book, full book. And we have some here for those of you in the audience, if you like.
Christopher.
Christopher? Was that Christopher?
Yeah.
What's going on?
And I'm just adjusting the camera.
Oh, okay. Should we just hang out for a bit?
No,
while
you're
you-
great.
we do? You want us to wait?
No, keep going.
All right.
This is awesome.
Much faster, everyone.
All right, we had a comic. Let's get serious. We had a whole discussion. Yeah, you guys shouldn't follow me. I have no idea going on. Okay. The nursery was situated next to our bedroom. Up to that point, we had called it a sunroom, an addition made by the previous owners with no discernible purpose. It had sisal carpeting, a wall of windows, and a Moroccan pendant light with stained glass. Having no attached bath, it technically wasn't a bedroom, so taking into account the vaguely ethnic vibe, the original concept may have been a harem-themed office or an Arabian Nights gift-wrapping nook. In truth, it was an area in the house that Michael and I rarely inhabited except during our formal Christmas parties when it would be transformed into a martini bar. Even though I was in nesting mode, I was keenly aware that our adoption status was in flux, and so I didn't overindulge on babies' shopping sprees. In fact, I only purchased a few newborn basics, a changing table, a diaper genie, the must-have item of 2003, and an unassembled crib still in its box. The bare necessities collected in our newly painted, gender-neutral, daffodil yellow nursery. Our first nibble didn't come from California. It was an out-of-state placement from Iowa City, Iowa. Viv, our social worker, called very excitedly to tell us we were paired with a birth mom who was a white woman with a white name, and in 1 month's time she would be having a white boy. I was slightly disappointed in the color scheme of this scenario. After many conversations with Michael, I began to have visions that one day I would be surrounded by children the palette of the characters in the Shonda Rhimes series. I'll admit it, this Bridgerton cum Grey's Anatomy mixed race fantasia had less to do with social responsibility, and instead it appealed greatly to my white savior aesthetic. My desire for a kid, however, any kid, was greater than needing to fulfill some melanin-themed reverie, making me a bona fide yes even before Viv finished her description. It did occur to me that my husband, who rightfully wanted to have children who resembled him, might not accept this Wonder Bread baby from the breadbasket of these gluten-intolerant states united. Michael was in rehearsal in Long Beach for the musical version of A Raisin in the Sun called Raisin, which also starred TV and stage veteran Nell Carter. I did my research and I know all about you, the Tony and Emmy winner announced when first meeting my husband. Although they were playing mother and son, Nell clung to Michael, dubbing him her leading man, and with Nell Carter standing at 4'11" and Michael Shepard at 6'6", their stage pairing promised to be a delicious sight. When she found out Michael and I were in the process of adopting, Nell became even more invested, telling my husband that she wanted us to meet her adopted sons. From that first moment, Michael was in awe, and for him it was a privilege to help Nell during the rehearsal process, including making sure she took the right freeway home. Nell got confused navigating the LA highway system at night. So, after every rehearsal, Michael took it upon himself to lead her to the I-710, and then when it was time, he'd blink his blinker, indicating that Nell should exit onto the I-405 North to her home, while he continued on to his. Before they separated onto their divergent interstates, and to commemorate their newfound friendship, they would fondly wave to each other. It became their ritual. When I called Michael at rehearsal, I was still buzzing with Viv's thrilling news, as well as apprehensive of his possible negative response. I managed to catch him during a 15-minute break. Michael had me on speaker, and without my knowing, Nell Carter was in the background eavesdropping. Before I got out all the facts, Nell interrupted with her unmistakably nasal, high-pitched voice. "Name your baby Nell." Star sightings, or in this case, star hearings, are very much a part of LA life, and although I'm supposed to act appropriately blasé, I was tingling to my toes that Nell Carter had butted into our very private conversation. I clarified, more to Nell if you can believe it than to my husband, that I was calling about a boy and not a girl. Nell took a comedic beat and then, with the driest of deliveries, intoned, "and named him Darnell." In the silence that followed, I could practically hear Michael's gears turning. Before he could mull over the request too seriously, I cut in. "Viv wants us to reach out to the birth mom." Right there. This was met with a loaded pause. I've always wondered if Nell Carter was in the background prodding Michael with a silent nod. Through the phone, I could hear the stage manager inform the cast that their break was over, interrupting our tenuous moment. Before he went back to work, Michael murmured with a lack of conviction, "Set it up." Deborah Finn was in her late 30s, and not only had she allowed many of her children to be adopted, but she refused at all costs to apologize for any of her life choices. Being matched with a birth mother was exhilarating, and yet I felt we had to be circumspect in how we represented ourselves on the phone. Every avenue of conversation was a potential landmine for Deborah to duck and cover, nixing us as possible parents. Right off the bat, Deborah Finn let us know, "I really like the gays," which put my mind at ease. She continued to tell us that she has an uncle who does drag, and her last kid, a word that makes my mother cringe, was adopted by a lesbian couple in Los Angeles. This felt like a sign. We could make sure our child maintains a relationship with the LA lesbian's child, they being biological siblings, or maybe half biological siblings. This is where the narrative gets fuzzy. Preciseness wasn't Deborah's strong suit. I was never sure if her children, I think I counted up to 5, 2 that she raised, 3 she adopted out, if they were full siblings or half. When I asked about the birth father of the baby she was carrying, something I thought we, as adopted parents, had the right to know, Deborah got unduly defensive, causing me to, "Mayday, mayday," back off entirely, and instead babble on about an upcoming Johnny Depp movie in which he was to play a pirate. As we were rounding out the call, without any warning, Deborah told us, with no shame whatsoever, that she needed $400 for rent and a XXX winter coat. We learned in one of our adoption classes that it's illegal to buy a baby, but professionals look the other way if you help support the needs of the birth mother as she's going through her pregnancy. We told her we would go to Macy's the next day for the coat, and then we'd ship it off immediately with a check, the whole arrangement feeling like bribery. Deborah then gave us the LA lesbian's phone number, and she invited us to call them. Hold up. First, she demands a payoff, and then to spin herself in a positive light, she provides us with a reference. Okay, I get it. This bitch is playing chicken with her egg. You better believe we called those lesbians. It was through one of the moms that Michael and I got our most graphic image of Deborah Finn. She told us Deborah smoked unfiltered cigarettes, drank untold quantities of Mountain Dew, and because of her many pregnancies, she was morbidly obese and had lost 4 of her adult teeth, a pregnant woman's periodontal phenomenon I was quite ignorant of. Then, grasping the trailer trash image she had presented, lesbian mom quickly tacked on, "But she does make beautiful babies." In truth, that helped a lot. It was rumored that my husband killed Nell Carter. The facts were these. Michael was seen in the theater parking lot with Nell having a prolonged, heartfelt conversation, and it was reported that he was the last person to see her alive. So, if her death had been ruled a homicide, and if one were looking for a suspect, then very possibly a loose interpretation of those facts could have motivated LAPD to come a-knockin'. Stark reality was less telenovela. 2 weeks before the opening of Raisin, Michael walked Nell to her car after rehearsal, where they did, in fact, have a long, intense conversation. Then, as per their ritual, they drove in tandem to the 710. Michael clicked his right indicator, and as Nell exited onto the 405, they waved to each other goodnight. She then drove to her Beverly Hills home, used her house key to open the front door, which she then closed and locked with finality. And that very night, on the imported Tibetan rug that tastefully adorned her entryway, Nell Carter unexpectedly died of natural causes. It was a terrible loss. And the production of Raisin was in limbo. Do they recast? Do they, out of respect, cancel the project? From a selfish standpoint, I felt cheated. Not only was I not going to see my husband on stage with the Nell Carter, but also I couldn't help but feel that we may have lost a pathway to cracking the nut that is Hollywood. For Michael, who was born in Alton, Illinois, the most haunted town in America, Nell's death was a defining moment. Not only had he lost someone he was growing attached to, but he was also balancing the significance of becoming having spent his formative years juggling Baptist morality with hackneyed superstition and a burgeoning clairvoyant ability, I probably shouldn't have been surprised when my husband oh so boldly announced, "We're gonna call this boy Darnell." Don't take the bait. Darnell, I said. You really like that? It's what Nell would have wanted. By his tone, I knew I had to tread carefully. Michael, we said we were going to meet the baby first. Look into his eyes and figure out what name. I'm telling you, it's Darnell, he interrupted. I see, I said with flat voice. Actually, I didn't see. We had spent months going over baby names. I had personally thumbed through 4 or 5 embos, researching monikers, studying etymologies. I culled through Hebrew names and Arabic names and Gaelic names. Really crazy shit like Odo and Zebulon and Ethelred. Then, as a team, Michael and I winnowed down our list of boy names to 8, our favorites being Isaac and Dylan and Maxwell. Not only was Darnell not on the list, but I wasn't even sure it was a real name. I couldn't say because his foundation had been shaken to its core. In moments such as these, I have learned it is best not to offer opposing viewpoints nor to be reactionary. Instead, it's advisable to wait it out until common sense once again prevails. Besides, I had to believe that Michael would eventually realize that even Nell Carter herself would forgive us for not naming our possible future white son Darnell. I mean, give me a break. There's some oldies in the side. Sometimes I get this illogical belief if I ignore chores long enough, they might take care of themselves. Either Michael will get frustrated and do them for me, or for all I know, a band of nighttime elves will attend to what I had been procrastinating. After a couple of weeks, the crib was still sealed in this box, untouched. Neither Michael, who's totally useless at assembling anything, nor the elves had done a damn thing. Reading the meager single-page instructions was a feat unto itself. They must have originally been written in another language and then badly translated into English, for misspellings were rampant and verbs seemed to be more of a suggestion than a necessity. They were accompanied by 2 blurry rudimentary schematics showing something being screwed into something else, but I found them to be interpretive rather than helpful. I took all the pieces out of the box and lined them up, the footboard and headboard looking identical, as well as the two side rails, one of which would be stationary, while the other was a drop rail, which would eventually raise and lower, making it easier to get the baby out of the crib. The side rails not only looked the same whether facing up or down, but also, much to my chagrin, when they were upside down. It took me 55 minutes, accompanied by a sweaty brow and choice expletives, but I finally got the crib built. I activated the foot release to lower the drop rail, and it jammed. I had inadvertently inverted the foot release, preventing the drop rail from dropping, and incredulously, the only way to fix it was to take the whole thing apart. After my second attempt, I activated the foot release one more time, and the drop rail jammed again. This time on the hapless mattress spring, which I installed upside down, a result that has no upside because the drop rail wouldn't go down. No other choice but to take it up. On the third attempt, the rail slipped out of my grasp and the headboard fell, whacking me on the head. With a bruised ego and an inflamed goose egg, I somehow found the resolve to remain calm and concentrate. Attach the back side of the rail to the headboard, then to the footboard. Make sure both latch brackets are aligned. Insert the dowels through the latch brackets, and then add the mattress spring right side up. Attach the movable slide rail onto the latch brackets with the foot release in the right position. Insert the metal rods, slide in the springs, screw in the last screws, and I tapped the foot release, the slide rail lowered with a whisper, and it glided back up and latched with a satisfying, that's what I'm talking about. Soup to nuts, that fucker took up 2.5 hours of my life. However, in a build it and he will come fashion, I believe the completed crib was our message to the universe that we were finally ready. Not only that, as I was puzzling out the crib, I quite unexpectedly began to formulate an idea that might rethink naming our son Darnell. After a ta-da, guess what I just did? I started in with, I've been thinking. Michael, knowing me incredibly well, immediately went on the defensive. Yes. I never got the chance to know Nell. True. Wondering. So naming our son Darnell doesn't have the same meaning for me as it does for you. Before I could intervene, I continue. I was wondering if instead of honoring Nell, we go pro-open adoption and honor the birth mother. You want to name our son Deborah? He scoffed. No, her last name. Phineas of the birth certificate, but for short, Finn, which was the name we had actually taught. And there it was, my fix, all laid out like a Beverly Hills breakfast buffet. All I had to do was take a step back and let my husband percolate. Michael rolled it around on his tongue. Phineas Foster Shepherd. Yes, we had already agreed on the cumbersome hyphenate, and yes, it was a bit alliterative, but in the end, my husband appreciated the honorific, and albeit reluctantly, he consented to Finn, the threat of Darnell frittering away the wind. I couldn't wait to tell Deborah of our decision. She didn't answer, so I left a message, first checking to see that she got our package, and second to call us back. We had some exciting news. I called again the next day, once more going to voicemail. I told myself not to worry, we'll give her the weekend and then try again on Monday. Monday we'll be around, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, and still she wasn't answering. We called the adoption agency and asked Viv if she had heard anything. She said she would look into it. The next day, Viv informed us boys, usually when a birth mother breaks contact like this, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. It means that she's changed her mind. So sorry. I can't believe this. We bought into this whole open adoption approach. We made a connection with the birth mother, did everything she asked. Sent her a coat, sent her money. I convinced my husband to name a child after her, and she played us. She probably played other people as well, collecting checks all over the country from desperate parent wannabes like me. Then, without a word, she cuts us out of her life with decision of a surgeon, shining a light on my own depression, making me question if I should even become a parent. Fuck Deborah Finn. I'm a gay actor who doesn't have a sex tape. Trust me, I've experienced rejection in my time. But I could think of no other that butted me. Quite as I was itching to do something. I needed to focus my anger, and then it became clear my mission at all costs was to make Deborah Finn pay, and to pay big. I called the bank to put a stop payment on the check, but it had already been cleared. I called our adoption agent to ask them if there was any legal recourse we could take. She regretfully told us no. I called the LA lesbians to see if they had anything I could use to squash Deborah Finn like a gnat, but they declined to help. I called the Iowa City Police Department. I was ready for a receptionist or an underling to tell me that I would have to press charges in person, and if they did, I was primed to purchase a plane ticket for the first flight out. The voice on the other end confused me with, ICPD. I'm sorry, I stumbled. Speaker tried again. ICPD. The repetition offered me no clarity. As I noodled with the syllables, the voice on the other end mystified. Police Department. Iowa City Police Department, ICPD. Oh, yes, of course, I said, getting my bearings short. I would like to speak with a police officer. Well, you're in luck. Oh, are you Sergeant Clive Dupree at your service? What can I do you for? I wasn't sure if I was more shocked that this policeman would answer his own phone, or that everything he uttered sounded like a stock line from a TV show. I realized I hadn't thought this out. A crime may not have truly been committed. Well, maybe extortion, but on our end, it might look like we were trying to buy a baby. So I didn't think I could mention that. I decided what Sergeant Dupree could best do me for, and I knew this was a long shot, was to tell me whether he knew Deborah Finn. Sure, I know her, he announced. How small is Iowa City, Iowa? He then elaborated with a self-aware bravado. Her family has a house over there on Hickory Trail. Crime must have been down in Iowa City because Sergeant Dupree took out all the time in the world. So I not only blurted out my whole gut-wrenching saga, but I also forewarned like an unhinged Harold Hill, oh, you got trouble. Right there in Iowa City. That's trouble with a capital P that rhymes with B and it stands for blackmailing, backstabbing, baby-selling bitch. After my rant, Sergeant Dupree consoled me with, well, the Finn family are not good people. I mean, they're not out and out criminals, but they have been known to bend the law when it suits them. Then he shifted his tone and said, what are you after again? Here's the $1 million question. What am I after? I thought revenge was the answer, but that's beginning to seem understandable. After I hung up, I was vibrating at such a pitch, consumed with my own bile. There was a remnant, however, slowly revealing itself. What I believed I was after was both glaringly simple and yet seemingly surmountable. I wanted a path forward. Where the fuck did you come from? Michael was in the sunroom/nursery yelling at something. I quickly rushed towards the commotion. This has already been a week from hell. Now what? In that my husband was born with a veil, I half expected him to tell me the ghost of Nell Carter had made a visitation. Instead, next to one of the crib legs, flopping about on the sisal floor covering, was a gargantuan old-ass moth. By its jerky movements, I deduced it was either near the end of its life or drunk. Michael gestured for me not to come any closer and yelled, "Get my shoe." "No," I countered. "Let me save it." During my nesting phase, I had cultivated an all creatures matter philosophy, rescuing all manner of bees, flies, and spiders when they were discovered in the house. Michael, however, had no tolerance for anything creepy crawly and preferred his shoe. "I'm tired of you saving bugs," he groused. "I'm going to kill it." I tried one more time. "Michael, it's old. Let me scoop it up in a cup, and it can spend the rest of its days in the sun. Or I could kill it." I was faster getting the red Solo cup and a piece of paper than Michael was his shoe. I deftly trapped the moth and could hear its wings fluttering against the plastic. I made a mental note to throw the cup away as I cranked open one of the many windows. I was feeling pretty good about myself as I gingerly lifted the contraption through the window and pulled away the paper, releasing the geriatric moth into the sunshine. Out of nowhere, a crow soared by and grabbed the moth in its beak, flying it to the roof across the street. I was horrified, yet Michael felt vindicated that my plan had failed so miserably. The crow did not immediately swallow the moth. It had other plans. It wanted to inflict torment. The feathered brute took a couple of swipes at the elderly insect with its beak. Then it released the moth, letting it roll down the slope of the roof, only to recollect it and peck at it some more. The onslaught was Greek. It was Prometheus bound to a rock, and the eagle having come down from Olympus, ripping out the god of fire's liver, only to have it grow back to be ripped out again the next day. I couldn't take my eyes from the carnage. The first nibble may have filled me with disgust, but as the assault continued, I became enthralled with the crow's sadistic game. Each slice of its beak, each blow, each stab, a ruthless recrimination of the previous week's events. Peck, slice, peck. First Nell Carter died, then the adoption failed. Peck, poke, puncture, jab. Fucking Deborah Finn with her new winter coat. Peck, skewered, thorax slash. Stupid Darnell, stupid Phineas. Wings mangled, eyes gouged, antenna snapped. Fucking crib that took me 2.5 hours and still no baby. Peck, peck. Yes, that's it. Mangle it, kill it, devour that fucking moth. Yes! It was gluttonously torturous and 10 minutes of psychotic, but when that crow finally swallowed down its tethered meat, I'm tired, cathartic. Much more so than had I gotten Michael his shoe. That circle of life mise-en-scène offered me awareness that we would grow beyond our present hurt. Tomorrow will present another horizon. And so it came to pass. We went to Nell's funeral, a lovely tribute. Raisin opened with Carol Dennis, Bob Dylan's first wife, and she knocked it out of the park. I began to apply myself for the next adoption opportunity, feeling secure that petty larcenist and Mountain Dew aficionado Deborah Finn was receding in my rear view. In fact, as the crow flew away looking for its next course, I could feel a shift that in the not too distant future, finding solace once again could be entirely possible. Little did I know, we would cross paths with Deborah Finn one more time. Fucking Deborah Finn.
Before we go any further, I want to make a brief announcement. On the screen, during my school, lavishly painted illustrations. Those illustrations were painted by Abira Ali, who's here in the audience with us. As a young person, 19 or 20 years old, I lived in a basement apartment. I was on the very precipice of becoming a contribution to society. On summer days, my friend Heinous Rhymes liked to come over, and we would while away our lazy afternoons with beverages and conversation. On one such occasion, Heinous Rhymes said, "Tell me a story." Even though the setting could not have been more relaxed. I was on the spot. I had not prepared a story. I said, "Well, I could tell you a chicken giblet story." He said, "Chicken giblet." So I told him, Chicken Gimlet was sitting around one day cleaning his gun. Not having bothered to check to see if the gun was loaded or not, he was surprised when it went off. The blast made a sizable hole in the seat and caused some chunks of plaster to fall on poor Henny Penny's head. She was alarmed and, not mistakenly, assumed that the sky was falling. Henny Penny then ran off into the street to tell Turkey Lurkey the news. Turkey Lurkey was in a phone booth trying to call Chicken Gimlet. Chicken Gimlet did not answer phones, so Turkey Lurkey's calls went unanswered. Now, Heinous Rhymes was satisfied with this story. So that became a regular thing, that whenever he came over, he said, "Tell me a Chicken Gimlet story." To keep it manageable, I used recurring elements in every story. Henny Penny would declare that the sky. Similarly, Turkey Lurkey was either in a phone booth or getting changed for the phone to call Chicken Gimlet. He did not answer phones. I can't say why he was called Chicken Gimlet, but I can tell you something that I have never told anyone else, even Heinous Rhymes. Chicken Gimlet was based on a real guy who lived in the neighborhood, someone who was known for bumping into people. I one time watched him chasing a car down the street, hurling cans of peeled tomatoes at it as he ran. Apparently, the driver had upset him outside a supermarket. Clearly, he was a man of emotions and appetites. And there's another thing that it's a little sort of asterisk. That's not in the story, but he was married and his wife became friends with Linda Eastman, also known as Linda McCarthy. And Paul and Linda came to town to visit relatives, and they all got together. And they got along very well. But the guy who would be Chicken Gimlet said to Paul, "I never really liked your music." And Paul said, "It's all right, mate." I heard this and I thought, it takes to become a folk hero. So when Heinous Rhymes asked me to do a Gimlet story, I found that guy and worked in his misadventures, bumping into people in detail. I never wrote anything down, and no two stories were ever told the same way. Heinous Rhymes was kind of a tough audience, and he would have gotten bored. The Chicken Gimlet stories lived and died as an oral tradition. They might have remained dead if not for new developments in technology, which changed my ideas about oral traditions. 10 years later, I was fully employed as the public programs assistant at the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts at Lincoln Center. This was around the time that email was starting to change the way we communicate. My boss, Alan, the director of public programs, showed me how to use the insert key on a Word document. On the biography of one of our performers, a violinist, he demonstrated how you can replace a word with another word simply by choosing the replace all option. The word he chose to replace was the, and the word he replaced the with was chicken. Alan thought that I would be impressed with this demonstration, and I was. I absolutely was, perhaps even more than he realized. Invigorated by the possibilities of technology, I wrote down, typed rather, what I remembered of the Chicken Gimlet stories. I then sent the stories via email to a select number of friends and colleagues who I thought might benefit. The response was swift and favorable. Now, thanks to the miracle of email, my audience had grown from 1 or 2 to almost 10. I really started feeling good about Chicken Gimlet again. I moved from Manhattan to Los Angeles. On the strength of a friend's recommendation, I was invited to take part in a spoken word festival. The event I participated in was called Fractured Fairy Tales and took place in an art gallery which featured an exhibit by the great character actor Jack Palance, known for such roles as Count Dracula, the gangster Blackie in the noir classic Panic in the Streets, and the creepy host of the television show Ripley's Believe It or Not. He was a chicken gimlet sort of guy. And for the event, I was very nervous, having only told a story on a stage once before. I hastily put together 2 small booklets, the first and third chapters of the Chicken Gimlet saga. I wanted to have something I could sell. I don't like showing up naked. I don't know if it was the fact that I was fully clothed, had on the right socks, beginner's luck, or that it was the right time for Chicken Gimlet. But when I read my chapters, the crowd went absolutely bananas. I'd never experienced anything like it. I sold all my chapter books as soon as I left the stage. Afterwards, we all went to a restaurant with fake snow on the roof, where Abira Ali found a cockroach in the soup and let out a blood-curdling scream. That night, the soup was free, and I was on top of the world. I thought that Chicken Gimlet would be my contribution to society, which in a way did make sense. The tales of a homoerotic chicken character surrounded by drug-addled lackeys told us a story. Who wouldn't want to hear that? Grown adults who have jobs and earthly concerns might be comforted by hearing a story that has no redeeming social value or uplifting message. It was a bedtime story for nihilists. My exalted status as the teller of the Chicken Gimlet tales, which I took for granted, would prove to be short-lived. The next time I told a Chicken Gimlet story in public at an enormous multimedia event for a runway fashion show, I received a very different reception. The audience could not have hated it more. The situation was completely out of my control. Everyone was screaming, "Shut the fuck up! Get off the stage!" I was in over my head before a hostile audience. With no other plan in place, I kept going. Then when I was done, read the other one. After that, I understood that the Chicken Gimlet saga needed more chapters. I completed a total of 10 individually printed chapter books. I packaged them together as a box set called High on Life. Somehow, they made their way into the neighborhood. One night, I returned home to find that a stranger had left a message on the answering machine. He had gotten one of the Chicken Gimlet chapters at a local gallery, and it had moved him. He said, "Man, that shit is real." Later, I asked about him at the gallery, and the gallerist told me, "He's a guy who lives in the neighborhood. He's a gang member." He added, "I hope you don't mind that we I didn't mind, actually. No one had ever understood or appreciated Chicken Gimlet more than he did. I didn't need to go any further with the series. I made my contribution to society. Chicken Gimlet had come home to roost. Now, if you'll indulge me further, I did bring chapter number 3 of the Chicken Gimlet series, Chicken Gimlet Turns On. One day, Chicken Gimlet, at the insistence of Henny Penny, who claimed it would relieve him of a lingering head cold, took some LSD. As soon as the drug began to take effect, he allowed himself to believe he was a bowling ball and smashed every lamp in the house. He then threw the better part of a lemon meringue pie and a couple of cans of peeled tomatoes. When he tried with that, he jerked wildly at a stop sign, believing he was wrestling a bear. Hours later, after a brief visit to the psychiatric ward, he told Henny Penny that he'd found clarity and would no longer be needing his earthly possessions. Henny Penny, who found a certain amount of clarity in herself, was in the process of building an amusement park. One night, struggling to free herself from a falling sky, she'd run into some old friends, twins, Bearsy Dose and Dozy Dose, and their friend, Little Lambsy Divey. Mersey notes suggested that they all put on nurses' uniforms and visit a nearby hospital in search of drugs. Everyone loved the idea, especially Henny, who, as we all know, has delicate tastes. Meanwhile, Turkey Lurkey at a peep show had mistakenly linked the police and arrested. One phone call he'd been allowed, supposedly to Chicken Gimlet, was a wrong number. He reached the bank manager, who by now was familiar. They talked for over half an hour until the call was terminated and Turkey Lurkey dragged to a hole. The visit to the hospital went remarkably well. Everyone left with bags and bags of drugs and assorted medical and surgical supplies. The hospital staff welcomed them with open arms, and little Lamsey Divey went from patient to thermometers suppositories. The only thing missing was Chicken Gimlet, who surely would have thrived in such an atmosphere. While splitting up their booty, Henny Penny and her nurses had ingested some of the candy-colored goods, and as time went on, they became enchanted, each in their own fleshly tainted happiness. Little Lamsey Divey sang to herself quietly while Henny Penny explained in glowing detail her plans for an amusement park, which would feature a ride that included a dropping floor and falling objects from above. Chicken Gimlet, having found clarity, could not sleep. He decided that the only option left for him was to go up on the roof with binoculars, a bucket of fried chicken, a 12-pack, and a sack full of plastic explosives. The intimate comings and goings of his neighbors were of keen interest to him. He had never been particularly close with them, but all that was about to change.
Thank you all. Thank you, Clutch. Thank you, Dana, Priscilla, Gordon, Tanya, Ryan Younger, and Bill Hammerstone. Tracy, and everybody at EST who supports us. Please, again, if you can, please help us continue this program and support our theater. So, next event is the first Sunday in May, I believe it's the 5th. The theme is All's Well That Ends Well. I know, it's true. So, we'll see you then. Thank you all. All right.